Hello, friends. I'm Kush Khandelwal, and this is Ageless Athlete. A few years ago, I started asking questions that would not leave me alone. Why do some people keep pushing mentally, physically, spiritually long after others burn out or break down? What does it really mean to age well when you still crave movement, meaning, and mastery? This show is my search for answers. Each week, I talk to elite athletes, everyday adventurers, and pioneering researchers who are stretching the limits of what's possible across age, injury, illness, and self doubt. You will hear hard won lessons, untold stories, and science backed strategies for building a body and mindset that lasts. For those of us joining for the first time, welcome to the show. For the rest, thank you for joining us again. Time is our most valuable asset, and I deeply appreciate you giving me your time today.
What does it take to live a life in pursuit of waves for over 6 decades? Today's guest, Gary Linden, has been doing just that, riding everything from 2 foot rollers to 50-foot behemoths around the world since the age of 12. Gary was one of the first true surfing nomads, traveling to remote regions and living amongst local cultures from Brazil to Japan in search of uncrowded remote breaks. You will hear hilarious tales of getting hopelessly lost, hiking through dense jungles, camping for months in tiny fishing villages near secluded waves, and the unbridled thrill of exploration in those wide open days before surf forecasts. But Gary's true legacy is as the pioneering face of modern big wave riding. Imagine swells the size of 3-story buildings barreling across an oblivion of ocean. That's the canvas where Gary etched his name. Hear how an unwavering mindset of commitment allowed this slight 135-pound waterman to paddle into some of the heaviest slabs on the planet at places like Todos Santos and the bone-crunching barrels of Puerto Escondido. His fearless vision led him to create the original Big Wave World Tour to crown the planet's best big wave chargers. Now at 74 years young and still surfing every day, Gary opens up with raw honesty about the habits, philosophies, and convictions that have kept him ageless in pursuit of his one true passion, surfing. With humor and wisdom forged from decades in the lineup, he imparts insights about prioritizing what matters, overcoming setbacks, and leaving a legacy by doing what you love. So pop in your earbuds and get ready for a truly epic ride with a surfing legend who exemplifies what it means to live life by your own rules. This is Gary Linden's story, and it's one you don't want to miss. Gary, hi. Great to have you on Ageless Athlete Podcast today. Please tell us, where are you right now and what did you have for breakfast this morning?
Oceanside, California, and I had oatmeal mixed with a protein powder, maca, cacao rishi, dates, Brazil nut, blueberries, and honey.
Wow, that sounds like a very fortified start to the day there.
Yeah, I'd like to get some protein stuff and not a lot of solids, but get proteins and vitamins when my body's able to absorb them, and then have a bigger meal at lunchtime. And if I don't get a meal at lunchtime, I'm too busy or something like that, then I've still got some protein because you need some.
Yeah, and I find that when I do eat like an oat heavy breakfast, I'm able to stay without eating again for several hours.
Yeah, no, it doesn't fill you. You know, you don't feel full. So like I can go surfing instead of having bacon and eggs and pancakes or something. Not working.
And do you, yeah, it sounds like you eat your breakfast before you hit the water in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay.
I started out with 8 ounces of cold pressed green juice and a little bit of coffee before, and then I like to try and get all the things I think my body needs so that the rest of the day I can just eat whatever, whatever I can, try to eat healthy, but I know I've already got the essentials that I need for my body.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I try and do the same thing with either the nutrients that I want to get, and also some of the other, let's say, less fun parts of my exercise mobility routine. Try to knock out as much in the morning before I get lazy and get distracted. Yeah, that sets a great tone for our conversation today. Let's start, Gary, with asking you a little bit about your surfing journey. Surfing has taken you all over the world. You have been such a huge influence on the sport as we know it today. Can you help take us to perhaps the first wave or first proper surf session, which made you completely fall in love with the sport?
It started before I got a surfboard. So, my dad grew up in Hermosa Beach in the early teens. So he didn't have a surfboard or anything, but he learned to swim. And he started taking me to the beach when I was about 7, and we'd ride the air mattresses and learn about the current and the waves and everything else. And, so I had a love for the ocean. And I think that allowed me to be acceptable to when I actually got to try a surfboard. When I was 12, my sister, 6 years older, and her boyfriend's family came from Arizona, and they came out. The funny thing, they came to Carlsbad and rented a beach house like about 500 yards from my house where I live now. And they had a surfboard there, and dragged it down into the water and caught a wave on my stomach and rode it in. And I just never looked back. That was the most exciting thing I'd ever done in my whole life. And I love sports, and it just, that was a sport that just gave me total freedom. I just never stopped.
Sure. And you rode that first wave, or the first session was spent mostly on your belly.
Yeah, nobody was helping me. I just said, go out, and because I had experience in the water, I went out and then, okay, here's what I'm going to try and do. I'd ridden waves on an air mattress, the ones that they had in those days, but I never stood up. I didn't even know,
Sure.
didn't even know how to get started doing that.
Sure, absolutely. I also personally believe that it doesn't matter what position you might be in when you're on a wave. Doesn't matter what craft you have, but if you feel that rush of the water moving below you and you're carried by it, I think you're surfing.
That's right. Yeah. So I was surfing at about 7, but not on a surfboard, but just
Sure.
riding a wave and learning to body surf. Like Katie's, she's a great body surfer. She didn't need a surfboard. So I figure when I can't stand up, I'll be on a, Mori boogie or body surfing or something like that. But I just love the feel of, like you said, having the wave underneath you and push you forward. It's incredible.
Gary, how old are you now?
I'm 74 and a half.
You're 74 and a half years young.
Oh.
And you have been surfing or enjoying being on waves for over 6 decades.
Yeah, 62 years surfboard riding.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible when you think about it.
I've been thinking a lot about energy, not just in training, but in recovery, in focus, in how we age. So when I came across NutriSense, it hit home. It's a program that pairs a 24/7 glucose biosensor with a dedicated dietitian to help you understand how your body responds to food, stress, sleep, and movement, and then act on the data. I chose it because I wanted something real, not another hack or one size fits all plan. just honest insight into what's actually going on inside me and how to build habits that last. NutriSense has helped over 150,000 people take that step. And if you want to try it, you can get 33% off your first month with code Ageless15 at nutrisense.io. Again, that's nutrisense.io, code Ageless15. You can also find this information on the show notes for this episode. There's so many stories that you have found yourself in over the decades and you have created. It's almost difficult coming up with one area I want to dive in first. But let me ask you this, though. So you have surfed and you have lived in many parts of the world. You have made yourself a home in foreign cultures, places which are, let's say, equally vibrant, but also culturally very different. Say, your time in Brazil or your time traveling to Japan. And you were maybe one of the, let's say, surfing's first travel nomads, decades ago. What allowed you to make a home in these foreign cultures? What allowed you to sink in and become a part of the local milieu in those times?
I always enjoyed traveling from an early age. And my father always told me that, the only thing money's good for is going on trips. It happened was I didn't have a fear of going somewhere. I would look forward to it. And I didn't really care where I went to. If you gave me a bus ticket to wherever, I'd jump on the bus and go see what was out there. When I got to a place that I liked, tried to learn the language and embrace myself and absorb another culture. I went to UCSB, University of Southern California, Santa Barbara. And my second year was the year they had the riots and the student was killed. The Bank of America was burned. It was like, it was a curfew from 7 to 7. You couldn't go out at night. It was just terrible. So I quit college and my mom told me, well, if you're not going to go to school, I want you to travel and get your education in the world. I was given a, initiative to do that. And I speak 3 languages fluently, Spanish, Portuguese, and English, and I'm semi-fluent in French. So, and I'm pretty good at geography. I've been all over the world and stuff. So I think I got like a master's degree, an international thing. My mom was always pretty happy about that. But, I noticed with my best friend from high school, he doesn't have the same wanderlust. He's perfectly happy to be here and safe and everything else. But I get bored. There's so much more out there. You brought out Japan and Brazil, and it's like the 2 opposite cultures of the world. Most people don't know this, but the second largest population of Japanese people is in Brazil, and the third is in Peru. And they all came after World War II. So you got these people that live at home in their Japanese culture, and they're living a very Eastern philosophy. And then they get out in the street in Brazil, and they're just wild. So I think spending so much time in both places has allowed me to meld my personality, have the warmth and the excitement and fun of Brazil and the austerity and the strict attention to detail that the Japanese have. And it's kind of a nice place to be. So I don't know. I might not answer your question, but it's a little bit.
You shared some real gems. I love what your dad said, which is money is really for traveling and for seeing this beautiful world. And so you picked up these languages, Gary, like 3 languages before you left the US, or was it during your travels?
My first language at school and high school, I studied French for a couple of years. I got to college and I didn't want to keep up with French, but there was a language requirement at college. I was like, well, I'm going to learn Spanish. because I could use it. And then when I quit, I finished my 5 quarters, which is the requirement. And then when I quit, my first big trip was my best friend and I went for 3 months by train and bus all through Mexico to El Salvador and back. So for 3 months, I
Wow.
Spanish for 2 people because he didn't ever learn a word, so. And then I went to Europe and I stayed in France for 2 months, and I got pretty good at French, because I had all they're all 3 Romance languages in it, and so the root words are very similar, and the way you conjugate the verbs is similar. So I had a pretty ease of remembering French, and then I went to Portugal and then Canary Islands, and I sailed from the Canary Islands to Brazil. And when I got to Brazil, I ended up living in a fishing village for 6 months, and nobody spoke English. And the funny thing about it was that if I tried to speak Spanish, they couldn't understand the Spanish either. Their worldview, I mean, you could go to Rio and it's a different thing, but this small fishing village where the waves were, their worldview didn't allow them to conceive of any other language but the language that was spoken there. They didn't know people spoke English or that spoke German or anything. That was so simple. And they'd look at me if I'd say something in Spanish, they'd go, "Man, this guy's not very smart. He can't even talk." So the room I rented from the family, was a woman, her 3 young daughters, and the older lady that helped her. And also, they made meals for me too. So twice a day, I'd sit there and they wouldn't let me go without learning to speak, So, in about 10 minutes, I could speak Portuguese.
Yeah, not only Portuguese, but you were being taught Portuguese by the locals. So you learned, let's say, the language the right way, the slang and the local inflection and all of that juicy stuff.
They call people who are from Rio, which is the classiest place or the coolest place to be from, Carioca. And so I speak Carioca, and that's pretty cool. People ask me what Spanish, they go, "You speak Spanish?" I go, "No, I speak Tijuanense. I speak Spanish from TJ, Tijuana." So,
right, because you just know. Yes, that is so funny.
Yeah.
Amazing that you were out there, finding family, let's say, in remote lands. I'm guessing surf discovery and looking for waves and looking for conditions, let's say 50 odd years ago, was just a little bit different than how it is today. And, today we have the apps and, all of these things at our fingertips. Can you give us a taste of what it was like to go to a new place? Only maybe, guided by stories from others. Show up there and look for surf.
Well, I got a bunch of stories in that realm, but I'll give you the first one. Like I said, my friend and I were going through Mexico. We went to San Blas first, which was just south of Mazatlan. We ran into a friend from my surf club, and he said, "Yeah, we're going to go to Punta de Mita," which is the Mexican Malibu at the time, right? And he said, "Well, yeah, you go to La Cruz, and then from La Cruz, you could take a bus." And so we went to Puerto Vallarta, got the bus to La Cruz, but it turned out there was 2 La Cruzes. So we got to this one La Cruz, and it was La Cruz de Guanacaste. And we go, "Well, where's Punta de Mita?" And the guy goes, "Oh, it's so out that way, And we're walking through the jungle, and it's like, we started in the morning, and it's getting late, and later. We just kept going. It turned out, took us about six, 7 miles with our boards and our backpacks to get to the other La Cruz, which was La Cruz Blanca. And
Oh, wow.
that's kind of thing we figured out, but you'd go that same trip. We were in Oaxaca City. We saw the bus would go to two places. One was Puerto Escondido and the other one was, Puerto Angel. And Puerto Angel is, where all the fan points are. So we looked at the map and there were just all these points going like this, like this, like this. And Puerto Escondido was just this big beach break. So we took the bus. It was 14 hours through a single lane mountain road. We get there, the cliffs are straight up and down. We have no car to go exploring. We turned back around the next day and got back the bus. And so we missed out Puerto Escondido. We missed
wow.
Salina Cruz and all the point breaks.
Oh, wow.
And you're flying blind, but
Yeah.
we found a few spots. We had good surf, but it wasn't like now you're going to go, oh yeah, I'm going to go to the Mentawais and I'm going to go to HTs and I'm going to get barreled for 2 weeks, and I'm going to eat great food stuff. It was not like that, but I look now and I see all the posts of all these great waves that people are surfing. And now those waves are, beyond my ability. I just think, man, I searched more than I surfed. Probably. Now you just go to the place and catch your waves, but it was a lot more fun, I think, in the old days.
Sure. Well, I will say one thing, maybe in hindsight, everything seems great, but you probably had less FOMO than people have today, where instantly have access to all the other cool waves breaking everywhere else, where you are not. At least back then, you saw the mountain range separating you from Puerto Escondido, and you had no idea that there was this, premier spot over there. You were like, okay, well, this was a long ride. Let's do this long ride back and go find something else.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea. A good thing we didn't make it to Puerto Escondido because we had like 6'4" surfboards and no leashes and nobody to surf with, and going back to Puerto later, there's some pretty big waves there. So probably the timing was probably right. Wait till I got a little more experience.
You were saved from yourself, perhaps, by that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I'm going to actually come back to that point about come back to Puerto Escondido in a little bit later. But Gary, you probably have enough stories, and I don't have enough time with you today. So I will ask us to move forward a little bit from discovering all kinds of waves in places far flung. You found this niche for yourself with big wave surfing. I wanted to get a little bit of a peek into how did that happen. Was it a conscious decision where you decided that this is where your talent and your passion lay? Or was it something different where you found yourself as, let's say, a major driver behind big wave surfing as you know it?
I always tell people that big wave surfing is more philosophy than it is the actual size of the waves you ride. And I always wanted, whether it was 2 feet, I always sat out the back. I'm not one of those little scramblers in the inside. Catch as many waves, and I always want to catch the biggest, best wave. And so that was always my vision. And growing up, watching the surf movies with Greg Knoll and, Buzzy Trent, Jose Angel, and Pat Curran, those guys were my idols. Those are the guys I wanted to be, they were the stars of the movies in those days, and it just looked like that much fun. And, I started getting a taste of it. And actually the first big wave that I actually rode that was over, 20-foot phase was in El Salvador on that first trip. And I'll tell you what, I just wanted more, So I got the place where I end up in Brazil is Saquarema, and now that's where they have the best wave in Brazil. But I was there by myself, and the only people who would come on the weekends are people. So I surfed a lot of big waves by myself, and um, I
Wow.
I just loved it. And then I got married, I was married and had kids, and I didn't surf Waimea Bay till I was 33. Then it really lit up, that like all this time, thinking, oh man, I don't think I can surf Waimea. Probably gonna kill me. I'm not gonna do it. And then I did it, and I went, okay, what's next? And then kind of discovered Todos Santos, and it just could go down there by myself and a couple friends, or just it wasn't like Hawaii where there was a lot of people. It was just an island off the coast of Mexico, and it usually just surf with the people that you went with, and you got to surf all day, all day. You have 3 sessions a day, and we take like 3 different boards. We take a 7-foot, a 8-foot, and a 9-foot. And there was no surf report. We'd camp out for 2 or 3 days and surf whatever came. And it just grew from there. And I realized I have talent at this. This is where I really excel, because I'm not afraid. And everybody else seemed like they were afraid. And I'm just going, I'm not afraid of this. I mean, when I sailed across the Atlantic, was in a 30-foot wood boat with no motor. And the first day out, we were in gale force 9 winds with 20-foot waves, and people go, well, aren't you scared out here? And I go, no, I can see the shore. I can swim to the shore. I've been in 20-foot waves. I see the shore. This is nothing. And so I just kind of, that's what I loved, So I devoted my life that at that time, since I was so much older, and all the guys that were riding big waves were older, because you had to have enough money to have big wave boards, but you had to have enough time to take off when the swells arrive and say, hey, I surf or travel or anything. So we weren't really seeing what an athlete in his prime, say 18 to 30, was able to do with big waves. Well, I got to create a sport out of it, so somebody can have a goal as becoming a professional big wave surfer, so we can see what is actually possible, because we were just catching big waves and kind of going straight, just doing what they were doing in the 60s and everything. The first success story from my vision was Greg Long, and was a teenager surfing some of my events, and turned out to be, if not the best, one of the best big wave surfers of all time. So now we see it.
Friends, it means a lot that you're here. I pour a ton of heart into the show. The research, the interviews, the editing. It's all me, trying to share stories that matter. If Ageless Athlete has ever made you feel seen, inspired you, or just kept you company on a long drive, or better, over a run or a bike ride, I would be so grateful if you considered supporting it. Even a small amount helps keep it going, helps keep bringing the show to you for free. You can chip in at buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. Again, buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. You can find the link on the show notes as well. Thank you for listening and for being part of this. I should not be surprised. I'm guessing many of the stable of big wave riders have emerged, from your vision. One question I wanted to ask you, as let's say somebody who doesn't yet aspire to surf any big waves. I find that when I go surfing, I want to get a certain wave count. So if I sit out back and I'm waiting for like the biggest wave, which is often fun, and I also save myself, some of the agony of getting pounded by the insiders. Was this something about your personality where you just had this patience, Gary, that you're like, you know what, I don't care if I don't catch 15 waves. I'm happy to sit out back, because for me, that one big wave or those 3 biggest rides to the beach are
Well,
more satisfying.
so let me put it in perspective. When there's a big wave event, which wave do you see? Which photo comes through?
Which photo?
Biggest wave.
Well, it's usually the biggest wave for sure, like the one that captures everybody's eye. Yeah.
It's the same way with your soul.
Mm.
You know, quality over quantity.
Mm.
Referring to Greg Long, he started sitting out with me. I don't know, sitting out the same place, wait for it. Now he's the best at it. He might sit out for 4 hours, 5 hours and catch one wave, but it's the one everybody remembers and he remembers it too. I just use that as an example. It's not about being the star that day or catching the biggest wave. It's just, that's the one you remember and you carry all your life. And if I was scrambling around on the inside catching, I'll give you a good example of it. Like I cracked my skull open and almost died a couple years ago. I said I wasn't afraid before, but recovering from that, being underwater and having to be pulled out and having your, head sewn up and actually fracture your skull, it puts a dent in your head and in both ways, physically and mentally. And I got back into surfing and I wanted to surf Todos, and I would go out to Todos and I go, I probably can't surf the big ones anymore. I'm just going to sit in here and try and catch a little one. And I try and catch little ones and I just sit in the wrong spot and I couldn't catch them and I just get tired out and then I just, catch a couple of crappy waves and come in. Now, then this last season, I just went, oh, screw it, man. That doesn't work for me. I'm going to go sit out at the bowl where I know what I'm doing. And if I eat it out there, I'm going to eat it, but at least I'm going to give it a try. And I caught 2 bombs, so got to stick to what you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And
man, it's your philosophy. And that's how I'm not saying what you're doing is wrong. I'm just saying that why I do what I do. I don't function well, and I never did it. Even when it was little waves, I ride little waves. I still only catch 3 waves. Catch 3 waves and I come in. So it takes me hours sometimes, It's just, I don't want to paddle for something crappy and then have a killer wave that I've been waiting for show up.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to wait till it's up.
Well, I think I understand that drive. Actually, funnily enough, less from surfing, because it's surfing I've only been at it for like a dozen years. And as I was relating, San Francisco surf doesn't offer you the opportunity of endless patience. So when the surf here is good, which is not very often, you want to get like a quota in. But it's funny, I've been climbing for a lot longer, rock climbing, and I found this of late where I would rather go for, the one, the best line of the cliff for the day. Like I would rather save my energy for like a send attempt at the line that I think is within my grasp and seems the most classic, than try to do a bunch of routes which are a lot easier or maybe not as fun. So more quality, more epic over mileage. So I think I understand that. I mean, maybe in 3 decades, who knows what I'm going to say, but yeah, Gary, thanks for sharing that. I think I understand that. I want to ask a little bit about how you took that vision with big wave surfing. You were discovering these spots often by yourself, maybe you and a couple of your chosen friends or your proteges like Greg. And it seemed like you took this passion for exploration. You took this penchant for big waves and you realized that, hey, there doesn't seem to be an event that celebrates and brings together the world's best surfers. So you created the big wave surf circuit because that's what you wanted for yourself and for your band of the world's best big wave riders. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about how the big wave tour came about, and then how would you describe it to the everyday person who does or does not surf?
Well, I started surfing at 12. And I started organizing contests for my surf club when I was 15. I've been directing contests, and I knew how to do it. And then I started shaping surfboards at 17. So you're correct. Done most of it for myself, what I wanted, and what I couldn't have, I wanted to be available to the next generation. Like we had no career path for professional surfing when I was a kid, and whether I was a good enough surfer to be a professional surfer or not wasn't an option. So I started making surfboards, which isn't a very lucrative profession, but to stay involved. But big wave surf, I worked, I was president of the ASP. I worked on creating the shortboard tour for 20 years. And I was on the board of directors since the beginning of the ASP and all the way to president. But when that was up and running, I, was surfing Todos religiously. And one time we were out, sit by the campfire at night, and let's have a contest, you guys. And there was about 10 of us. Everybody put up $100. We'll have $1,000 prize person. We'll go out and surf for the money. And that just started kicking the idea around, and I got the opportunity to organize an event for the ASP that was going to be a tour event at Todos Santos with 4 surfers, women and men. And I organized the whole thing. It took me, I don't know, almost 2 years to get it organized. But we had, there was a partnership deal coming up with CSI, which was a marketing company. They were going to merge with the ASP, and they were going to be the sponsor of that event. And the surfers at the year-end meeting didn't sign off on it. But we're waiting every morning because of the time difference. I'd call Australia to the director and go, are we on or are we not? Right up to 2 weeks before the event was to be held, they told me, nope, we're not going to have it. So I had this whole thing. And then the International Surfing Association, the ISA, the next year said, let's do a teams challenge. So that was a year that Todos, Peter Knox's 52-foot wave at Todos went all the way around the world, and he didn't even get to out of the semifinals. He didn't even get to the final. But going back to, it was the biggest wave. He won, right? Even though he didn't win the contest.
Sure.
So anyway, we did 3 events. We did 2 at Todos, 1 at Madeira, where 2 surfers from each country would come. We'd hang out for 3 weeks and pick the best day. And the last year at Todos, this group of South Africans won, and they were sponsored by Red Bull. And Red Bull wanted to do an event in Cape Town at Dungeons. And they tried to do it one year and they couldn't do it. And those guys go, hey, you need Gary to come over. Call Gary over here. And so they had me come over. I brought 2 surfers from Mavericks, Grant Washburn, and to try and intermix that. We did that for 9 years, Red Bull Big Wave Africa. So it gave me an opportunity. And then I head judged at the Mavericks, gave me an opportunity to create a format, put a proposal together, and I went shopping it around. And it took a long time before I realized that I had no proof of concept. And nobody was gonna pay for a tour if it didn't exist. So I was in South Africa and for the Red Bull event, and I went to see the movie Breaking Down the Tower, which was how the IPS was created. And this light bulb went on in my head. I go, that's what I'm going to do. And there exists. I'm going to link them all together, make a rating system, and crown a world champion. So I went to all the events that existed. There was the one in Africa. There was Maverick. There was one in Peru. There was one in Chile. And what I promised them is we'll take 24 surfers. your best at 18, and I will bring the best 6 big wave riders in the world, and we'll create a tour. And from there, we'll have a rating system so that, if your surfers win, you can move up. And that's how it worked. So it went great.
Gary, you found some conviction to put so much energy and love and your own resources into pioneering this, whole new untested path. Like there wasn't anything like this for big wave surfing. Like where did you find this conviction to put so much on the line to see this thing come to life?
I'm full of analogies, but I'm going to give you another one. Every year at Mavericks, before the event ran, this is back in, the early 2000s, and big wave community was still relatively small, and we'd paddle out, sit in a circle, everybody hold hands, and it was kind of a special time because here were 20, 30 other people that you didn't have to explain what it was like to be a big wave surfer. I mean, you didn't like all the people in the circle, but you'd save their ass if they they needed help. We didn't have leashes, we didn't have jet skis, we didn't have things. We just, somebody took off and away, we watched it. If he didn't come up, we'd paddle in to get him, And there was that kind of camaraderie. And what I realized, I wonder, what do we have that connects us all? I just came to the conclusion it was the ability to commit, regardless of the outcome. So we'd go. If it came, we were going to paddle for it. We were going to keep paddling till we caught it. We'd stand up and take the consequences. So everything I've done in life that way. But that was the only way I could put my finger on it and tell you, I've been married 50 years. That's no, you commit, man, you go, work. Shaping surfboards. I wanted to be the best in the world. Maybe didn't get there, but I sure gave it my best shot. Wanted to be good big wave surfer, so just had to keep getting. One of my friends was an older guy, and he owns a Baja 1000, so he's won that race and done everything. I took him to Todos once he surfed, and he told me it was one of the top 5 things he's done in his life, exciting things. And he goes, you're Superman. You wipe out, you bleeding, and you paddle back out and catch 3 more waves. What's wrong with you? I don't think there's anything wrong with me. It's just, I just commit and go. And I wanted to see a big wave world champion more than anything else. So I risked everything for it, and came to happen.
There is some deep wisdom there, Gary. Yeah. Going all in is not the path for everybody, perhaps.
It's not for everybody. No, I'll tell you what. When I was a little kid, I wanted to quit baseball because the manager wouldn't play me, Now my dad goes, you quit at the end of the season, but you're going to finish the season. I'm not raising a quitter. You quit, you lose. You keep playing, you're winning.
Yeah, no, for sure. We don't have enough time to get into, this whole legacy you have created around surfboard shaping. There are Gary Linden boards all over the world now. Let me ask you this, though. You have been at the forefront with both normal size waves, let's say performance waves, and big waves. And as somebody who's seen and helped innovate and push the boundaries for many decades now, what's one area of either of surfing or, let's say, of surfboard design where you think we will see the next major disruption?
Well, when I've been asked that question for every decade since I started, and I always say, materials, we're now trying to find organic materials, and using agaves becoming available for mass production. So that's pretty cool. And, just keeping the boards light and strong, and and the basics design are all pretty much just the same. It starts with the rocker entry, speed, and release. And I've been working with some of the best in the world since I began. And Dick Brewer was one of my mentors, and that type of situation, you realize that it's all you're only going to make finite changes. With the shaping machines now, we can really dial in the performance level. We can change things so finitely that you could never do it by hand. People scoff about the use of the leaders, but leaders is such a tremendous measurement that gives us so much knowledge. I mean, if you know for a shortboard, if you know how many liters you need to catch a wave, how much flotation you need, you could spread that across any design. You take one of my boards or one of your boards, and there could be completely different design, but at least you'd be on the right volume, and you could give that design 100% test, because you could compare it to what you're using. And before we couldn't do that, it's like, my shaper can do it by hand. And, it's like, I can probably have you come in here and probably guess your weight, your height, as well as any circus performer can do it. Like, I've been doing it all my life, but that doesn't tell me when you come in what the board you were riding was like. I don't, unless you bring it in, I can't tell, what your body needs to float it. But now I can, I need 28 liters, right? Heavy guy, I need 50 liters. So, little aspects of incorporating technology into what was traditionally been a handmade, soulful art piece that gets rid, turn it into something that, who knows what AI is going to do, take all the data, I mean, we watch baseball now. We know how many times the guy adjusted the straps on his gloves before he hit the ball, on whether he run or if he did it 6 times or he did it 5 times. And it's all that it is available, So once that data comes available, I imagine it's going to unleash a million different design possibilities that aren't available by hand. We just experiment and go. That's the way we did it. We build a board. Oh, does this work? No, right? No, it didn't work. Oh, let's change it. That's fun. It's tiring,
Hello, friends. Just a quick break. This is not an ad. If you have been enjoying these conversations, I would love for you to subscribe to my newsletter. It is where I go deeper, sharing stories, reflections, and behind the scenes insights that don't always make it into the podcast. I write about what I'm learning from elite athletes and how to stay ageless in body and mind. If you have ever wanted a thoughtful, inspiring read that ties it all together, training, aging, mindset, and awe, you will love this. You can find the link in the show notes or just head to agelessathlete.co. Again, www.agelessathlete.co, that is, to sign up. And yeah, just a couple of emails a month, and you can unsubscribe anytime. Absolutely no spam ever. Okay, back to the show.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Surfing, again, like some of these outdoor sports, they are, maybe in a good way, blessedly behind some of the more mainstream sports. So the room for growth and innovation is just that much greater.
Yeah.
Let's jump into this next area I want to really ask you about, which is around performance. I mean, big waves to the ordinary person, they seem to demand this superhuman level of fitness and athleticism and whatnot. Let me ask you this. So when you see people out there who are approaching, again, a big wave surf area, and you have elites out there, and you have, let's say, more amateurs or more ordinary surfers. What separates mentally the pros, the elites, people who are performing at that level from everybody else with their mental caliber?
Well, like I said before, it's all ability to commit. And for me, big wave riding, I never got to train. I always had to work my butt off, and I had a family to support and shaping surfboards, everything. So I always with my head, just train with my head, just visualizing myself paddling into a big wave I didn't think I was going to make, and that's the kind of commitment it needs. As long as you're physically fit, you're not, you don't panic. You can't panic, you can't be afraid that you're going to drown or something like that, because then you won't be able to hold your breath and the worst is going to happen. But if you're confident with your ability to survive, a good wipeout, then it's just, committing to, paddling fast enough, putting yourself in the place and riding it. And one thing people ask me, is big wave riding safer now than it used to be? And I say no, because now there's too much, there's jet skis. If something goes bad, yeah, it's okay. But there's more people willing to take risks that they aren't aware that they're in a dangerous situation. They think because they got an inflation vest, a leash, and a jet ski to save them, that they can survive. And survival is when you're prepared. In the old days, we didn't have leashes, we didn't have vests, we didn't have skis. We could all swim. And we weren't afraid to swim.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there was only a few of us who would be out there. It was kind of prepared. There wasn't anybody that was out there that shouldn't have been out there. Now there's a whole bunch of people that shouldn't have been out there, and they create a danger zone. They sit inside. You can't catch a wave outside without maybe running into them or something. It's like you keep your mind solid, confident, and in tune. And I'm not going to say you don't need to physically train, but I think your mind's more important than your body.
Yes. Mind is 90% really what it is, but having the kind of body, the physical performance that gives you the confidence to be able to commit, like you said, I think that seems to make a big difference. About training, Gary, you talked about training for a second, about being physically prepared. What are some of these approaches that you see surfers today have embraced? In a sport that's, and you've seen it, over these many decades, which has been about, hey, the best way to train for surfing is to go surfing, to today where there are all kinds of, again, innovations that have come in when it comes to being able to prepare for surfing by staying on land. What are some of these things that the best surfers are doing today that you think are the most worthwhile to be able to be, again, physically prepared to commit?
Well, I don't have a lot of experience in training, in that way, because my training was always, just surf small, blown out, crummy conditions with the shortest board you could, because you'd have to learn to read the ocean and read the currents and read the winds and read the swells. And then you had to paddle really fast to catch one of those waves, and you had to get your feet really quick and turn before it closed out. Those are all the skills you need for riding big waves too. So people laugh at me about that, but I still believe it. I still do it. And that's the only training I've ever really done. But what I have started doing in the last 6 years is yoga. And I wish I would have done that earlier, so it would have been more flexible. But yet, training yoga is about breath and flexibility, and those are the things I think you need most. I don't think you need a lot of muscle to be a big wave rider. I'm 5'7", I'm on a good day, and weigh 135 pounds, so you don't have to be big, Mr. Atlas to do it. You got to be flexible and hold your breath. So,
Well, you mentioned breath work for a second. Did you do any specific training with, let's say, being able to hold your breath in violent conditions to prepare yourself for big wipeouts?
Yeah, I think I had a really good lifelong training. I had really bad asthma when I was a child. And, Flea, Roscoe, and Jamie Mitchell, another number of the big wave surfers that I've known had asthma, and asthma teaches you that you don't really need air, and that the only way you're going to get through it is to relax. Because it's not being able to get air in, it's not being able to get air out, because it constricts your, I don't know, air thing. So if you panic, you're going to die. Basically, die of asthma, they panic.
Yeah.
The same thing happens in the water. So like you get used to just learning to go, okay, I'm having trouble breathing, but if I panic, it's going to get worse. If I relax, I'm going to make it. And I think that's so anyway, your mind over your body. That's the air training. I don't know about my friend trains it and everything. And you don't have to hold your breath for like 5 minutes or anything. You have to hold your breath for like 30 seconds in extreme conditions. If a double wave hold down, maybe you hold it for a minute, in extreme conditions. But it's more about not just sitting there going, hold your breath. It's like having two Samoans throw you in the pool and thrash you around while you're trying to hold your breath.
Mm-hmm.
Shit, that's what it's like. So you just, I'm not scared. There's panic, just get thrash me around and I'm going to make it. It's been a lot longer. I have pulled my inflation vest once, and I'd probably worn it for 10 years. One time.
Oh, wow.
And I probably could have made it that time, but I just went, I'm going to try it. But nowadays, the kids just wipe out and they pull the cord, I don't know. Part of the fun.
I have, I have a bit of mild asthma. I have had it since I was a kid. And yeah, there goes my, my one excuse on not wanting to go out on bigger days. Because, there's that feeling of panic that I feel. Yes, when I cannot see the bottom from the top. And I'm like gasping for air. So, I think it's being able to, and I think you're right. Like the breathwork training, if any, needs to be specific. It's not about assuming an ascetic pose. It's about being able to. It's not about the length of the breath hold, so to speak, but it's about being able to be in a violent position when one is not able to get air, which is maybe more specific preparation for bigger hold downs. That thing you talked about, having to only pull your inflation vest once. So I saw this video of you taking a beating at Puerto Escondido, the place that we talked about earlier in the conversation. And I think it earned you the biggest wipeout of the year entry. Was that the time when you had to
No.
pull your...
That's a funny story because I don't know if you have time for it, but that was the third day of the swell. That was not even first day of the swell. Was really big. Like it was probably a third at least bigger than that. And Oscar Moncada was probably one of the best surfers. He's passed away now, but was one of the best Puerto surfers. And he and I were sitting outside. This set came. We both paddled to go over it. We got both back over the falls backwards. And my board got taken by the wave, but pulled me underwater, and the Puerto doesn't let go. So it just kept me underwater, and I couldn't get up, and I couldn't get my leash off, and I almost drowned that time. We didn't have vests or anything. Puerto didn't wear a vest, but then the second day, there was only 4 waves ridden, and I caught one of them. And the third day,
Oh, wow.
I just was kind of playing. I got the wipeout. It was just a small day and nothing even happened. And everybody, that's the one that people think of, but that one was really nothing. And that was
So it wasn't that wave that got
that was a wave.
broadcasted.
That was a wave that got broadcasted, but that was the lightest thing that happened to me in that.
Oh gosh. Okay. Oh well. Yeah, it's just funny how videography and virality works. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not always the one that is the most intense that makes the. Anyway, that video it still is a little awe-inspiring because I can only imagine how much bigger of a thrashing it must have been for the one that did not make the news. Because yeah, if this was like the one that is more subdued, yeah, I can't imagine like how bad. And given your understated way of putting things, if you're saying that you came close to drowning, I can't imagine how violent that must have been.
Yeah, it was pretty scary, but made it.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, yeah, stories for the ages. Moving on a little bit, I wanted to ask you some things about staying ageless. As a respected elder in the community of surf, any specific mindsets that you try to impart to the up and coming surfers, people like Katie, even people like Greg Long, maybe further back in the day, people that you are guiding and mentoring, on how to maintain the longevity and the passion in their sport?
Longevity is not something you can really mentor. I don't think anything but example. Like, people look at me and go, "Wow, I see you can do it." And we didn't have that when I was younger. Like, there was, most guys were pretty much done at 30 when I was a kid. And, our stars and everything at work, or alcohol, or something, and taking them off the path. But I just try and live the example that I think you try and live, that surfing is the most important thing to me in my life. So I want to be able to do it as the best I can. And as you get older, it becomes more and more difficult. And, I've talked to some of the older surfers, like I, spoke to Greg Nolan before he passed away, and just, Greg, how did you quit, man? What? He goes, well, I didn't really quit. I just stopped going to Hawaii, and I stopped making it a thing. But, you look at him, and he couldn't have surfed anyway because he got so heavy, and, just people just kind of, they give up, and a lot of people, like, I can't surf very good at all compared to what I used to be able to surf. Instead of being frustrated and going, oh, I'm going to quit because I can't surf as good as I used to, I just go, I'm going to try and catch 3 waves and get to my feet, and I'm just going to keep doing that till I can't do it anymore. And I don't really care what I look like or what I don't look like. I just want to keep doing it, because this is it's more to me than just a sport. It's like my meditation and will to live and to stay healthy, so it's mentally and physically, it's my lifesaver. So, I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke. I don't stay up late. I don't try not to get sidetracked, and try and, just keep going, man. And if somebody asks me, then that's what I tell them, and I still work, try and keep active. I try and stay involved, even though I don't really want to. I just want to surf and take a nap or something, but I still do podcasts and try and hopefully inspire somebody, that, yes, my mom lived to be 99, my dad lived to be 90, and they didn't quit. They just, even though the end, it wasn't, they weren't too healthy, but just everybody, unless you die of a heart attack, you're probably going to go through a time period of 6 months to a couple of years where you're really not able to do much, and that's a challenge, and I want to be in the best shape as I can. So I think I'm probably going to live to be 90 plus, I want to make it to 100, but I want to be able to walk around and carry on a conversation and catch a wave or two. And the only way you can do it is train, so you can live your life in preparedness for that. So I do yoga and try and watch what I eat and exercise mentally and physically and surf as much as I can and try and stay as stoked about just being alive. Like, remember when I had my head injury and for a couple of months I was pretty foggy, I wasn't all there. I remember saying to myself, well, if this is all I get, I'm cool with it because it's better than being dead. And I try and go back to that, like if I'm having a bad day and I'm going, well, better than being dead, you got you got a choice. You can wake up and be positive or you can wake up and be negative. And that's the one thing we can choose. So try and 100%, don't always make it, but I try and wake up and be stoked. What a great life I've gotten to live, and it's not over yet. I want to keep it going. Pretty pleased.
You spent all these decades adventuring in Latin America and beyond without touching alcohol. I'm very impressed.
Well, and I didn't spend the whole time without touching alcohol. I only...
I was kidding.
Yeah.
I was kidding.
No. I never, wasn't a big fan, but I used to like a glass of wine or shot of tequila or something like that, But coming back to asthma in the last 5 years or so, alcohol is an inflammatory. And I met this guy who's a free diver, and he trains people for breath training, everything. And we were at a party, and he goes, oh, get you a drink. I go, well, yeah, I want to drink water. And he goes, yeah, me too. We became friends immediately. And he started telling me about it. He goes, well, the first place that alcohol attacks is your lungs. Yeah. I would start having asthma if I'd have one beer, and I get asthma late. And I thought, well, it's the hop. So, okay, I'm just going to have one glass of wine. Oh, it's the sulfites. And I go, well, I'm just going to have one shot of mezcal because that's clean. And I started having asthma after that. So, not worried. Not going to do it anymore. And that's the kind of thing that I was talking to you. What's the most important thing? Whether it's having a drink or smoking a joint or whatever, what's going to give you the most pleasure the next day? You want to surf? Yeah, it's a pretty easy choice. You stay up till midnight, you're going to wake up, you won't be able to surf. Even if you don't drink or smoke or whatever. It's just focus on what's important. And then you get at least a couple steps farther.
It is a complicated world that we live in today in many ways, having access to multiple surf forecasts being one of them. But maybe one simplifying principle could just be that, which is, just think about what's the most important thing and focus on that. And then anything that doesn't help us achieve that one North Star is not important enough to indulge in.
That's right. Perfectly said.
Yeah. Gary, you mentioned, you talked about your head injury some time ago. I want to ask you, have there been any other impediments, setbacks, or even injuries that you've had to overcome? You've had to overcome in your pursuit of being able to continue pursuing your North Star, which is being able to get in the water every day.
Oh yeah, I got, I get my share of injuries. I had a couple of them this year already before. I don't stop taking as risks as I should, and I'm not, with the balance I should, but I get hurt probably more than I used to, but I'm 74. I've been surfing all my life. Compared to other sports, like a soccer player or American football player or even a baseball player or a prize fighter or anything else, I wouldn't be doing it. I would be messed up. So I think surfing is pretty safe and relatively. and even big wave riding. I get hurt more in small waves than, than big waves. All my major injuries have been in small waves.
Any new routines or habits you've had to learn to just, again, keep up with some of the ravages that come with time? So for example, as I get older, I have to now do this morning mobility routine, which I've grown to love somewhat grudgingly. Are there things that you've had to adapt to, which have also been fulfilling?
Well, like I said, I'm pretty religiously do yoga 3 times a week. And I'm in a gentle yoga class with people my age because shaping surfboards for 50 plus years kind of wrecked up my hips. I have arthritis in my hip. And so I have a little trouble walking. Some days better than others. But yeah, just, put my pants on in the morning sometimes hard. Tying my shoes, it's different. Well, yoga, keeps me pretty good, and I still surf. I ride a 6'1" shortboard most of the time, and unless the waves are bigger.
That's impressive.
Yeah,
that's impressive.
I can ride a longboard, and my friends are stand-ups paddling, and it's just having someone to surf with that's younger or thinks you do helps a lot. But I just don't want to. I could catch a whole lot more waves if I rode a bigger board, but not about catching a bunch of waves again. It's about sticking to my focus. I want to stay on a shortboard because if I stay on my shortboard, it's more difficult, and so I'm thinking it'll prolong it longer. But as far as if I did a mobility exercise every morning, I'd probably be in better shape. But I try and surf. I try and don't surf. I for sure do yoga. And if I do yoga, I try and surf too. And I think, go back to what you said before, surfing is the best training for surfing. There's nothing like it. I mean, what other sport you have to sit and wait and figure which one you're going to catch and then be in the, it's just like there's so much going on, man. There's nothing like it. Patience, it's, acceleration, it's, all these things that, every other exercise you can do repetitively. But surfing, you nothing's repetitive. Every minute's different, and you have to sit on your board and make sure you don't fall off, all kinds of stuff. So,
yeah, it is the most tangibly dynamic environment that nature offers us. So it's constant puzzle solving when one is out in the water, trying to figure out what to do next. Let me ask you this, Gary. You've had such a consistent focus on surfing and everything around it. Are there any aspects of periods, if you think back, where you may have been off kilter? You fell out of alignment with your values and priorities.
Not really. No. Surfing's always been first. The only, when I was my high school girlfriend broke up with me in college after 4 years. And I got really sad, because I thought, in those days, people married their high school sweetheart and lived the rest of their lives, so that was kind of how I envisioned. And all of a sudden my life was upset. And a lot of the days when I didn't go surfing, I'd spend with her, and I went, but after that happened, I went, you know what? Nothing's ever going to come between me and surfing again in my whole life. And it never did. I've been married 50 years. I raised 2 daughters. I got a grandson. I take care of my responsibilities, but I surf, because it's the one thing never going to let me down.
Any periods where anytime you've been doing one activity, even an activity as thrilling and exhaustive as surfing, you hit mental plateaus. You may not be performing at the level that you have been at or something else. Have you had those, Gary, and perhaps how have you overcome those?
Well, like when I've had an injury or something like that and I can't surf for a while, I just go back and I surf. The first time I surfed after my head injury, I barely got to my feet, and I tried, I went out on a 5'10" anyway, so crazy. But I just, yeah, I know that if I keep trying, I'm gonna get better. And I don't, it's not that I don't care, but I don't expect to be yesterday. I expect to be the best I can be today. Even if I have a bad session, tomorrow maybe tomorrow I'll get a good wave. I didn't get a good wave today, but maybe tomorrow I'll get a good one. And tomorrow always comes. So I've proven to myself that you just stick with it. And, a lot of my friends are like, oh, you want to go skydiving? Oh, no. You want to go swimming? No. You want to go snowboarding? No. You want to go wing? I just surf, I tell my friends, you want to go paddling with me? I go, no, I paddle to catch waves. I run if someone bigger is chasing me. I surf, that's all I do. And that just keeping focus, And I think any success that I've had in life has been due to my ability to focus on priorities.
Yeah, I was going to ask you actually if you have dabbled in some of these tangential water sports, like, foiling is all the rage these days. But it sounds like, again, it's been just that singular love for paddling to catch waves while lying on a board, which has been supreme.
Yeah, I didn't get into toe surfing that much. I did it when it first came out, but I didn't like it that much. And, it's just, I figure it this way. If I get hurt surfing, I'm going to relax in the hospital or wherever I end up, If I got hurt horseback riding or skateboarding or something else, I just went, oh, you dumb shit. What'd you go and do that for? Now you can't surf, So that's how it would be for me.
You get so much joy out of being in the water. It sounds like that's such a key part of your daily routine. Can you share perhaps one of the smallest and maybe most mundane things that also brings you disproportionate gratitude?
Probably yoga.
Sure.
That's probably the closest. I remember Jerry Lopez, he's my age, he's a year older, and we were talking and he started yoga when he was 19. And he goes, yeah, I started yoga because all the hot chicks were in my the yoga class. And well, it took me till I'm about 68 to figure that out, and now I'm not very smart, but I should have started when I was younger.
Well, it sounds like you already had some of that figured out earlier in your life. Gary, just a few fun questions to round us out. What is one meal that you could eat every day?
I can eat fish, rice, beans, and a vegetable every day.
It sounds like gourmet dietary practices ingrained from all those years of epic bus rides in Latin America to remote coasts.
Brazil. That's Brazil, and Brazil Brazil has the best food for me because it's basic and it's fresh and it's simple. Some chili pepper, a little bit of salt. Doesn't need a whole bunch. Just good fresh food.
I'm surprised by that answer. Not that Brazil does not have delicious food. I thought Japanese food for you would have ranked just as highly.
Japanese food's a little Well, depends, like if you go and stay at a typical Japanese house, some of the stuff you eat is, you got to close your eyes and just get about it and eat it, but Brazil's just basics food. Brazil has delicious food. It's not that, in Bahia, they got the African influence. You can get all this stuff. There's
Of course.
South, there's German, French, and Italian, and there's Dutch in the north and African and it's just Portuguese. It's great food. But when you, every day, it's a protein, rice, beans, and vegetable. And that and the water is like fresh fish. And some of the fish,
Can't go wrong.
some of the fish from the Amazon, pretty nice too.
Absolutely. What's a dream wave that you would like to check out? I know that you have probably surfed most dream waves, but is there one left that you would like to surf once?
Well, I haven't ever surfed the Mentawais. I
Really?
never surfed there. I'd like to surf. I think I'd like to surf P-Pass, that wave but I just like to get like a barrel that doesn't have like a annihilating drop, so I have time to get to my feet and set up a turn and then pull into a barrel and get a good ride. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. There's so many waves out there that I haven't ridden that I would have liked to have ridden, and that I'd still like to ride. But I rode. I'm not complaining about it at all. But there's, I ran a lot of contests and I judged a lot of contests and I traveled a lot and I shaped a lot of boards. And nowadays it seems like the younger surfers are enjoying the fruits of our exploration and work. I wish I would be able to get some of those waves that surfing nowadays, Nias or so. Some of those killer waves, but I'm going to get to go surf the surf ranch again and the end of next.
Oh,
That's a pretty fun one too. So, it's all
sure. And Gary, if you find a forgiving barrel, some of us, more average surfers out there would love to be in the know.
Yeah, we'll do that. I will do that.
Final question for you, Gary. If there was a big billboard on I-5 or let's say a big freeway out there where you could leave something, a message for the generations, what would you like it to say?
If you quit, you're losing. If you keep playing, you're winning.
That is, absolutely. You gotta stay in the game to stay in the game.
Stay in the game. That's winning. Nobody, they're not going to add up how many strikeouts you pitched. They're not going to add out how much money you made. They're not going to, it's all about the ride, So it's a journey, so if you're in the game, doesn't matter. You're playing. I like being at contests so much because I was so happy that it was finally happening and that there was a sport. Whether I was a director or the judge, or I'd pick up trash to go just to be there, playing the game. Part of it. Yeah.
One question I forgot to ask you earlier, which is something that Katie McConnell wanted me to ask, which is what's the state of the Big Wave World Tour today?
Well, I turned it over to the World Surf League. When the World Surf League came about, they gave me a job. I worked there for 5 years. And pretty much they let the World Tour deteriorate because it was challenging to find sponsorship when they couldn't predict the day or everything, this or that, whatever they said. So I let some time pass and I'm starting it up again. Happy to say I'm getting it going again. We should, 2025, we should be able to crown a new world champion.
Amazing. And what format? Are we going to have multiple events or maybe just one or two events, Gary?
Multiple events. It's it's called the Big Wave Alliance. And going back to just taking the existing event, the events that have existed. Like I have my event at Todos Santos, and there's a couple of events in Spain, a couple of events in Chile. There's one in Brazil. But the format is it's spot specific. It's based on the best surfer from each spot. So if you have a contest, I don't care how you judge it. I don't care what format you use. Give me the winner. And all the winners will then go to a live event, which will be 2 semifinals and a final for the men's. And the spot will be able to be hosted by various sites. Whoever wants to host can go, I want to host this year. So the live event will be different spots around the world. So it's going to be
Wow.
pretty exciting. Like if we get 6 events, if we get 4 events, then we'll take the top 2 and 4 wild cards, and it's just a start. You gotta get started. Once you get started, got proof of concept again. I'm sure somebody in the United Emirates Republic will come in and want to take part of it.
Why not?
They got golf and everything else, man. They might as well have some big wave surfing. So
Soccer, everything, yes.
yeah.
Well, has this been announced actually officially yet? This
No.
new format, Gary?
No.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure people listening will be very excited to get this little sneak tidbit into what is to come. Super exciting, Gary. Thank you for sharing it today. And wish you the best for the launch. And thank you so much again for bringing it back. I find watching the Big Wave contest exciting in a way. Watching WCTs is also super exciting, but there's something about people charging, 50-foot waves, which just, I don't know, makes my heart beat in a whole different way. So thank you for bringing it back. What an incredibly raw and inspiring conversation with Gary Linden. For over an hour, we were immersed in his lifelong obsession with riding waves. From the thrill of exploration and discovery as surfing's original nomad, to the pioneering spirit that drove him to charge some of the heaviest slabs on the planet. Gary did not hold back in sharing his mindset of total commitment that allowed a 135-pound waterman to paddle into absolute mayhem at crazy waves like Todos Santos, Mavericks, and the dreaded barrels of Puerto Escondido. His vivid recounts of hold-downs and wipeouts that nearly cost him his life were candid reminders of the inherent risk he embraced to live his passion. Yet, what stuck with me most were the surprising life lessons threaded through Gary's tales. The relentless pursuit of what you love, no matter the odds, the full commitment needed, and then doing the hard thing today to enable your dreams tomorrow. Prioritizing your true passions over fleeting distractions is what takes us to the next level. At 74 years young and still actively surfing, he is living proof that an unwavering philosophy can fuel an endless font of youthful stoke. Whether you are a surfer or an everyday athlete or someone who simply admires those who chart their own path, I hope Gary's story inspired you as much as it inspired me. He's a reminder that with the right mindset and conviction, you can turn any passion into a reality and a lifelong pursuit. The journey is never over for those who choose not to quit. So embrace what fires you up, commit to it wholeheartedly, and never stop chasing the proverbial wave. That's the Gary Linden way of living. Thanks for listening. Get out there, chase your own wave, find your adventure, and stay ageless. Friends, this is not an ad. This is just a quick message to those amongst us who are listening to Ageless Athlete podcast for the first time. I would love it if you would hit subscribe and follow on your favorite podcast app, whether it's Apple Podcast or Spotify or Stitcher or Overcast or what have you. We bring you stories and routines and other inspiration from elites in the world of the best outdoor sports. In each episode, you will find how these athletes stay connected to the outdoors, maintain peak performance, and continue to thrive as they age. I encourage you to look through Brad episodes and listen to a couple and see if they resonate. And then, come back next week. We release an episode each week. And I am really inspired to bring you some of the best stories from the world of the outdoors. Okay, back to the show.